You're listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast, and I'm your host, Tavishima Ayede, Abuja based event photographer. On the last episode, we took a COVID detour to show how you can still sell and do personal selling in times of crisis. Now, for this episode, we're going to return to looking at wedding expos and bridal shows, which was the last topic that we spoke about before we went into the COVID episode. So, 2 episodes prior, I raised a very important question. Are bridal expos worth the amount that you pay? Now, if you remember, I said that your investment could be anything between 25,000 naira for the bridal experience. That's the show organized by the brides and babies here in Abuja. And it could be over 100,000 naira for the bridal expo. That's the largest show in Nigeria, I think, which currently runs in Lagos and Port Harcourt, but not in Abuja. Now, my own answer is I think they're worth the amount if you have a plan or a sales process. Because if you go into these bridal shows without a plan or a sales process, then you're relying on pure luck for who's going to come by the table and what's going to happen once they leave your booth. So you need to have a plan. Now, the case study that I have here is not a formalized case study per se, because I ran into a friend of mine, Spice and Ice. She's a famous Abuja caterer. I ran into her at the bridal experience, and since that was the first time, and since I had been there 3 times prior, she wanted some info about how to handle herself. Again, that's the bridal experience, which is organized by Brides and Babies in Abuja. So we had a quick chat before the show, and we came up with some tips about how to get people to the booth, how to communicate the hook or her main message to them while they are at the booth, and how to come up with a follow-up strategy for once they left the booth. Now, the result was that she spoke to, I think, 22 or maybe 23 prospects, but the ultimate determinant, the ultimate thing that will say how good the show was for her was the amount of money that she gets from it. So we still have to wait for the post COVID brouhaha to die down, and then we'll see how things went for her. You can follow her on, I think her Instagram handle is Spice and Ice. I'll have to confirm, but just check on Instagram, Spice and Ice, and then follow her. She's a wonderful caterer, and they also do personal and home delivery and things of that nature. So, if you remember, our personal strategy, that was between me and Spice and Ice, was to come up with tips on how to get people to the booth. Because if you're there and you don't attract traffic, then there's no point in you being there. How to communicate the main hook or the main marketing message that you have for the day. In her own case, it was price led, because the organizers, that's Bride and Babies, what they advised was that people should show up with discounts and things like that they want to hook people with. So her own strategy was price led, and the initial mistake that she made was she wasn't communicating the price benefit to the people up front. So since that was the main message, my own tip to her was she ought to bring it forward so that they can see that even though it was ordinarily a 1.5 million naira price package or 2 million price package, they were getting X% discounts and things like that. And then finally, how to come up with a follow-up strategy, because people are preoccupied, and even if people weren't preoccupied in their normal day-to-day affairs, I'm sure you would agree with me that post-COVID, people are even more preoccupied now because they're worried not so much about planning their wedding per se, since it may have thrown a number of contingencies, but then they're also worried about other practical things like health, how to deal with disruptions to work and things of that nature. So it's absolutely essential that you need to have a follow-up strategy for when people leave the booth. So that was the plan for Spice and Ice. Now, I'm sure you guys like to know what my own personal process or what my own personal plan for the event was. Now, my own personal plan was to have conversations with the couples who came by the booth so we could build some rapport. Then I would also sketch a rough price outlay for them, how much it would cost for me to cover their wedding, or if they wanted video services as well, which is an add-on that I provide through a partner of mine, a good friend of mine, Shagun. We've been working together for a while. After that, I would now send them an invoice over email or WhatsApp so that they had the details of what it was that we discussed. And then I would get in touch later on to see if we could fix a follow-through meeting. Okay, how would I put this? We'll see if we could fix a follow-through meeting. The main idea of the follow-through meeting would be to see if they have any objections, any reasons why they don't want to go ahead, and then we'd address those reasons upfront. And then, if that's for those who don't have any objections, the next stage would be to obtain a buying commitment or to get a deposit to be paid. I'm not going to go into details about how I achieve all this today because that's pretty much the whole point of the podcast. So keep listening, and in future episodes you're going to learn more about that. So that's all for today. After this, we're going to return to the initial discussions that we're having on personal selling, which is basically an introduction to the whole idea of personal selling, since folks these days are much more familiar with branding, mass marketing, and things like that. So I'd like to introduce you guys to personal selling. I'll return to that. So please subscribe, like, and comment on Stitcher, Google, iTunes, Spotify, or whichever podcatcher that you use. You can also send me a direct message on Instagram. I am there as @Ayede_photography. Once again, Ayede. It is spelled A for Alpha, Y for Yankee, E for Echo, D for Delta, E for Echo, _photography. Thanks to everyone who's been listening so far, especially for the last comments I got from Auntie Gimme Cake, and the Gimme is spelled Gimme on Instagram. She says that it's good work and the podcast is relatable and well researched, and she likes that I use personal experiences a lot. But she had one question, that how come there's no social media promotion for the podcast? The answer is, for now, I'm focusing on consistency and building value to you guys, and then I'll worry about promoting the podcast later. Then there's also Aris on Instagram, that is _ARIS. She also likes the podcast, but she says she wants it to be more conversational. I guess maybe that will happen when I start interviewing guests on the show, but that's going to be much, much later. And she's also glad that it's under 20 minutes. And for those of you who like short podcasts, that is a personal commitment that I'm going to keep to you guys. So keep commenting, and I'll keep sharing the reviews that you guys have. So I'll see you all at the next episode. Thank you very much for listening.